Taurus, this week begins with a card that changes the question. Page of Swords does not ask, "What will happen to me?" It asks, "How do I want to meet what is already taking shape?" Your central thesis is that curiosity is useful when it helps you participate, but corrosive when it becomes surveillance. The deeper tension is curiosity versus suspicion. That means the most important movement may happen inside a decision, a boundary, a conversation, or a pattern that looks ordinary from the outside. Tarot works best here as a mirror rather than a verdict. Use the card to notice where you are acting from clarity and where you may be researching endlessly because lived experience feels vulnerable. The verified cosmic weather gives that card a precise context. On August 22nd, the Sun enters Virgo in your 5th house, bringing attention toward creativity, pleasure, romance, play, self-expression, and experimentation. Then on August 25th, Mercury enters Virgo in that same 5th house, adding language, analysis, decisions, and practical thought to the same territory. Those are the only transits we need for this reading. Their usefulness is not that they guarantee an event, it is that they identify a part of life where greater attention may be timely. Virgo asks for detail, usefulness, and discernment. Your card tells you what kind of inner posture to bring to those details. Together, they encourage you to notice what is actually working, what is merely familiar, and what small correction could make a larger difference than another dramatic promise. The reveal is Page of Swords. Think of it as the spine of the reading rather than a prediction. This card asks you to notice how you are using your attention and power. The tension is curiosity versus suspicion, and the shadow is researching endlessly because lived experience feels vulnerable. You may discover that the same external action can come from two very different internal places. Saying no can be clarity or avoidance. Waiting can be wisdom or fear. Speaking can be honesty or control. The work is not to judge yourself for the shadow, it is to identify it early enough that you still have a choice. The deeper meaning of Page of Swords for Taurus is not about performing the obvious keyword of the card. It is about applying its wisdom where your usual strengths can become overextended. This week, curiosity versus suspicion may show up in subtle ways. In how long you wait before answering, how quickly you volunteer, what you assume another person means, or what you keep doing because it once worked. The key is to recognize that your first instinct can be intelligent and still incomplete. Give yourself one additional beat before important choices. Ask what the choice is protecting, what it is building, and what cost it creates if repeated for 6 months. That longer horizon turns tarot from a mood into a practical lens. Let's move through the areas of life, because the card becomes clearer when it touches something concrete. Love. In love and close connection, ask the actual question instead of building a case from fragments. Romance benefits from play, humor, and discovery. Do not demand a verdict before a connection has had time to become real. The deeper task is to watch whether you are asking another person to manage an insecurity that really needs a clearer conversation with yourself. Relationships become more honest when expectations are spoken before resentment has to translate them. If you are partnered, focus on the quality of the agreement rather than winning a moment. If you are single, Focus on behavior that is repeatable rather than chemistry that is only intense. The card does not ask you to close your heart. It asks you to keep your standards connected to reality. Work. In work and purpose, treat learning as an advantage. Ask the basic question, test a small version, and let a creative contribution matter more than performing certainty. This is a week to value processes that can be repeated. One heroic effort can rescue a deadline, but it rarely creates a sustainable professional life. Ask what the work needs in order to be cleaner, more legible, or more aligned with your actual role. If you are considering a change, look at the structure around the change as carefully as the possibility itself. Competence is not only what you can do under pressure, it is what you can build so that pressure is not always required. Money. With money and resources, gather the missing fact, compare terms, then decide. Endless comparison can become avoidance just as easily as careless spending can. Try to move one financial choice out of the emotional fog and into a written decision. Numbers can trigger fear, hope, pride, or avoidance, but the number itself is still information. Give yourself enough compassion to look clearly and enough discipline to act on what you see. The goal is not to become rigid. It is to reduce the number of financial decisions that have to be reinvented every time your mood changes. Health and energy. For health and energy, protect your nervous system from too many open tabs. Give your mind stretches with no input so that curiosity can become discernment rather than agitation. Your body does not need to become another arena where you prove discipline or goodness. Treat signals as information. Notice which practices actually restore capacity and which only create the feeling that you are being productive about your well-being. Sustainable care usually looks less dramatic than a reset. It looks like choices you can repeat even when the week becomes inconvenient. There is also a psychological layer worth naming. For Taurus, the week may expose how quickly you equate familiarity with safety. Page of Swords interrupts that reflex by asking whether the familiar response still produces the result you want. You do not need to reject your natural style. You need to become more selective about when it is useful. This is where the distinction between curiosity versus suspicion becomes practical. The mature choice may feel less dramatic because it does not need to prove anything in the moment. It may simply create less cleanup tomorrow. Pay attention to that. Peace after a decision is useful information. Now let's walk through the week day by day. These are reflection points, not predictions about fixed events. Wednesday. Write down the question that keeps returning to your attention. Do not force a major conclusion from one moment. Use the day to observe the pattern and make the next reasonable choice. Thursday. Run one small experiment instead of searching for another opinion. Do not force a major conclusion from one moment. Use the day to observe the pattern and make the next reasonable choice. Friday. Separate what you know from what you have inferred about someone or something. Do not force a major conclusion from one moment. Use the day to observe the pattern and make the next reasonable choice. Saturday. The sun enters Virgo in your 5th house. Give creativity and pleasure legitimate space instead of treating them only as rewards. Do not force a major conclusion from one moment. Use the day to observe the pattern and make the next reasonable choice. Sunday. Participate in the experience rather than watching from the edge. Do not force a major conclusion from one moment. Use the day to observe the pattern and make the next reasonable choice. Monday. Replace a rehearsed conversation with one direct, non-accusatory question. Do not force a major conclusion from one moment. Use the day to observe the pattern and make the next reasonable choice. Tuesday. Mercury enters Virgo in your 5th house. Write, pitch, sketch, name, or communicate the idea you have been circling. Do not force a major conclusion from one moment. Use the day to observe the pattern and make the next reasonable choice. Before we close, here are exactly 3 journal prompts for the week. Prompt 1. What am I genuinely curious about, and what am I only monitoring because I feel uncertain? Prompt 2. Where would one direct question save me from 10 private assumptions? Prompt 3. What part of my creativity wants permission to be inexperienced? Your weekly guidance is a concrete assignment, not another idea to admire. Keep a Page of Swords question ledger. Whenever you feel compelled to check, compare, search, reread, or decode, write the question underneath the impulse. Mark whether it needs evidence or experience. If it needs evidence, gather only the missing fact. If it needs experience, take one real-world step instead of opening another tab. The purpose is to create evidence. By the end of the week, you should be able to point to one behavior that changed because you understood the card differently. Keep the exercise small enough to finish. A completed experiment teaches you more than an ambitious ritual you abandon halfway through. As you close this reading, remember the central thesis: curiosity is useful when it helps you participate, but corrosive when it becomes surveillance. You are not required to know the entire outcome. You are being asked to choose the quality of your participation. Let Page of Swords become a reminder that symbolic guidance is most useful when it returns you to agency, honesty, and practical action. Your affirmation for the week is, I let curiosity sharpen me without allowing uncertainty to control me. Let the week teach you that a curious mind becomes strongest when it knows when to investigate, when to ask, and when to live the answer. Carry that with you through August 25th. Subscribe so your next weekly reading is waiting for you. Trust the timing. The stars have spoken.